Okay, so one of the other things that I wanted to talk about is the idea of like failure. Oh my God, this weather's terrible. And it took me a long time to come around to really realizing why it was that some people were saying, that failure is a good thing, and especially coming from, like, again, highly successful people. So why it took me so long to come around to actually understand why failure is a good thing is because you're taught as you grow up that, well, there's a lot of cushions. There's a lot of social cushions that you kind of get as you're growing up. And the way that most people are taught is, you want to prepare a lot in order to avoid failure. And again, I'm realizing this is really the completely wrong way to think about it. There's merit to it. Again, there's always merit to these different perspectives, and they apply to different circumstances. But the idea of failure is actually, I was thinking about this the other day. I think it's got a big, like, negative connotation around it, when in fact, failure is actually a good thing. Failure basically means that you learn something, right? I think there's an example that gets passed around quite a bit. It's the example of Thomas Edison, so inventor of the light bulb, if I recall correctly. But basically, there's a quote by him, or about him, that basically says he went through about 10,000 different experiments where he didn't create a light bulb that actually worked. So he essentially failed 10,000 times before he actually invented a light bulb that really worked. Now think about that for a second. Would you say that those are 10,000 individual failures? The optimist would say that those are 10,000 different ways of the thing not working. So in other words, you actually learn something 10,000. You learn 10,000 different things, and you're 10,000 times more experienced because of it. There is an element of optimism, I think, in it, because I think a pessimist would just say it took you that long to just figure out how to make something work properly and how to actually, invent something successfully. But the reality is that there's a huge learning opportunity that comes from every single time you try something, whether or not you succeed. And that's something that's not really taught. It's just not very. It's not a popular way of thinking. You're supposed to try a billion different things, and with every single thing that you go out and you try, you learn something. You learn something about yourself. You learn something about the world. You learn something about other people, and that's a positive thing. There is no such thing as an experience where there isn't a learning opportunity. I think every single thing you try, whether or not it's a success in whatever definition of success you have, it's an opportunity to learn. Failure. There is no success without failure. I mean, if you really want to boil it down that way, there's nobody who ever came up with, some amazing idea who didn't have to go through, I don't know, 100 different trials before they actually perfected this idea. It's the same thing with Olympians, right? There's no Olympian who ever became an Olympian, a gold or a medaled Olympian, who didn't go through like crazy episodes of failure where they just didn't succeed. It's practice. It's practice, and practice is essentially the equivalent of failure, and that's not a bad thing. Practice is always good. It's just the language around failure is something that's I don't know how this happens. I don't know why this happens. It makes more sense to me now, having learned what I've learned, to say that, hey, you know what, you tried, it didn't work, move on to the next thing. Don't, rather than telling somebody that not acknowledging failure as a learning opportunity. There's something in that in our vocabularies that makes the concept of failure good. Okay, I just slid there a little bit. Sound like a bad thing when it's completely not. So anyways, that's one of the things I wanted to bring up. What do you guys think? Let me know. Just because you're not good at something right off the bat doesn't mean that even if you consider it a failure, that's not a bad thing at all. If you can get through, look at it this way: if you can get through 10,000 different trials quickly, in my mind, you're winning. in other words, you have learned and you have mastered something simply by the repetition of it, or by, you know, tweaking various things and trying it out 10,000 different ways. And by, you know, 10,001, maybe you've mastered it. At that point, you know more about that thing, and you're better at doing that one thing than anybody else because of your failures. And I call that a win. That's a success story. There's a quote by Bruce Lee that also gets passed around quite a bit. He's saying that something, I'm paraphrasing here, but basically, like, he's not afraid of the person that, you know, that knows 10,000 different kicks or punches. He's more afraid of the person that knows one kick or one type of punch that's practiced it 10,000 times. And the reason is because that person's a master at that one thing. And it's unlikely that anybody's outworked that one person. And you only get to that level if you've gone through a lot of successive and hopefully quick, so you save time. Time is of the essence, I think. But you want to get through these like quick failures, you know, sooner rather than later, quicker rather than slower, so that you become a master at it. And you only become a master by practicing a lot. And that's just the way it goes. So again, the secret to success is failure. Let me know what you guys think about that.